Get 10K in platform credits so you can scale your next AI app without breaking your bank account. That is the promise that we have today. And by now, you've probably seen a bunch of voice AI demos using, ChatGPT, and you talk into it, and you have the advanced voice mode. But the promise today is actually to kind of take you through a deeper dive of like, how do you build something like that? And how do you add a little bit more sophistication than what you've seen? And through my discoveries, I discovered one of the masters in this whole thing. I'm really excited to have Kwindla on today, who is going to take us through how you can really build something like a game or interactive things to deal with like multiple AI voice models and that respond in real time. And so that you can leverage these agents to use in your applications. And so you can start making some money. And on top of that, if you stay towards the end, I'm going to have a coupon code to help you get some of these platform credits. That's $10,000 in platform credits that these guys are just going to give to you basically for free. But there's a lot of other types of things that we're going to go ahead and cover. But Kwindla, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you on because real-time voice is a really tricky thing, and there's a lot of complexities going on under the hood. And I was just blown away by some of the demos you've been doing basically all over the Bay Area and in different places. And so I'm just excited to have you on. Kwindla, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff, and I work on an open source project called PipeCat that lets you build really cool voice AI stuff. So can I show you a demo?
Please. Yeah. Let's go. Let's cook.
All right.
Welcome to Word Wrangler. I'll try to guess the words you describe. Remember, don't say any part of the word itself. Ready? Let's go.
This is like the core component of large language models.
Is it a transformer?
No, think more like a whole bunch of connected perceptrons.
Is it a neural network?
Yes. Oh no, this is the study of like what things mean or how you know what they mean.
Is it semantics?
No, and I'm not going to get it right. So I think that's the end of the demo.
Wow.
I swear that neural networks was not like queued up. It was totally random. There's like several thousand words in this database. And,
wow.
Obviously, the computer knows more than we do about what we're trying to do.
Oh my gosh.
So the fun part there is that like there are multiple Gemini Flash models collaborating to actually run that game. So You've got like a player, you've got a judge. Obviously, I'm talking in real time. Both models can do things in real time. We could kind of take it however you want, Ray, but I love to talk about like the architecture and show code.
Yeah, let's nerd out.
If you want to back up and, kind of get some context first, let
Please.
me know.
Yeah, like Emmanuel is asking, is this live? Yes, this is a live demo. And so the app you see up there, is that something I could just go to right now? I think people are going to try to hit you up right now on that website.
Yeah, you totally can. word-wrangler.vercel.app. And if you play all the way through the game, at the end of the game, there's a link to the GitHub repo, which we can also, put in the comments, etc. All the code is here. You can just clone the repo. You can run this locally yourself. You can, in the repo, if you deploy this code, you can actually call and play on the phone. So like you could, buy a Twilio phone number, dial that Twilio phone number, and you're playing the game just with your voice on the phone.
Oh my God. Dude, you are absolutely cooking. This is a really good treat. And I think we're going to have, let's just go ahead and dive into the code. Tell me about how, you have this all set up, because I do want to learn a little bit more about kind of this thing, because these things, it maybe sound complicated at first, but let's just go ahead and dive in.
Yeah, so here's the repo for exactly what we just played. And there's a bunch of architecture diagrams and, a couple of different bot files written in Python that are the game, kind of one for if you have a UI on the web, one for if it's voice only, via phone. And I just want to show the kind of architecture diagram that shows you what you can do and what a lot of real world voice applications actually end up looking like that aren't just demos. So you've got this, you've got the network, you've got to get the audio from the person into the bot somehow. And then you've got to do things with that audio. Like you got to detect when the person is done talking so that when the LLMs should actually do the inference and do the responding. So you've got to kind of do some small machine learning stuff to do what we call turn detection. Then you have to prompt one or more LLMs. In this case, we've got two LLMs. One is the player, one is the judge. And then you have to take the output of the LLMs and you have to do something with them. In a simple case, you just send that audio back to the user. But in real world applications, you often have like text, you have images, you have like application events. You're doing things like content guardrails to make sure nothing, went way off the rails. If you built a bunch of AI stuff, you can't just do it as an open loop. You've got to have more code to check what things are actually happening. In this case, we've got this really fun loop where the player that you're cooperating with, who's guessing the word that you're trying to describe, the judge has to have access to that player's audio so the judge can be like, oh, the player got the word right or not. So we're actually feeding the
Wow.
audio from Gemini, the Google DeepMind model, Gemini Flash, back to the judge's processing pipeline and to the user. So
That is beautiful.
the data flow splits. And
Wow.
I can go from what this looks like in a diagram to what it looks like in code.
Yeah.
So here's the code that for the diagram we just looked at.
Got
We've
it.
got
Got
the
it.
network input. We've got some processing at the top of the, kind of the voice loop.
Mhm.
And then we've got these two different LLMs, the player and the judge. And this whole file is 700 lines of code,
Oh,
which is not that bad for something so sophisticated and kind of robust and fun and interesting.
oh my goodness. Wow. Holy smokes. So I just linked the GitHub on the actual in the chat. So if you're looking for that, please go ahead and check that out. And you can go ahead and start as well. I know Myron was taking a look, and a lot of people are asking for this. And so if you're downloading and cloning this repo, the first thing that they want to probably take a look at is like the bot_phone Twilio or something.
The README has some pretty good pointers. So
Ah,
there's a version you can run locally for testing, which is bot phone local.
mm,
There's the version where if you deploy it, it actually routes from Twilio to your bot. And then there's the version that has the UX if you're running from the web. And they all
ah,
share a bunch of code, but the pipelines are slightly different because the data processing flow is slightly different depending on what the user is sitting in front of or talking on, if that makes sense.
I see. I see. So, what are some of the most like if someone's kind of getting into these voice agents and types of things? What are some of the like quick wins that people can get started with? Like if they start playing with in the next like 15, 20 minutes, like that can start either modifying or tweaking to kind of start getting their hands dirty and seeing like a little bit different outcome, or if they want to make a little bit of different game.
What I usually recommend people do is go to the homepage of the open source framework that we've been working on for 2 years around this stuff, and either look at the docs or at the Discord, depending on your personal style. I
Yeah.
mean, sorry, docs or the GitHub,
Yeah.
depending on your personal style. The docs give you like really good, super simple examples you can start with that are basically demos, but they give you the core pieces.
Hmm.
And then there are also a bunch of starter kits like the Word Wrangler game we just played that kind of add more and more complexity depending on kind of what your specific use case is. And then everything is in the repo because all of this is completely open source, completely kind of vendor neutral. You can use PipeCat with kind of every hyperscaler platform you might use, plus all sorts of serverless GPU providers that are kind of new AI native. And
Wow.
everything here is like a deep dive into a particular slice of the voice AI world, if that makes sense.
Wow. Oh, so that means you can pull in instead of Gemini, you can use like you're saying, other people like OpenAI as well, or if you want to use like Grok with a Q or something, with the guys who do the really fast inference and stuff, to do some of these like
Yeah,
turn
exactly.
type of
I think
things.
there are like 50 or so AI services supported in PipeCat. And because it's just all Python code, if you want to add a new service, you can just submit a PR to the open source repo. But you see the kind of two speech to speech models that are kind of natively supported now, all the
Wow.
network transport layers, all the LLMs from all these different providers. Like last week was Quinn 3 week for a lot of us, and I was playing with Quinn 3 a ton, running both on my Mac and on like partners we work with like Base 10 and Modal.
Whoa, this is absolutely incredible. I'm kind of blown away with this game demo. So how do you set this up to kind of deploy? Because I noticed that there's actually it was deployed on Vercel. So that's a Python version that's deployed.
Oh, sure. No, that's a great question. So in the Word Wrangler demo, there's two pieces.
Mm.
Actually, depending on how you count, it might be 3, but I'm always interested in how to explain this stuff better. And you're so great at that. You can give me feedback here. You've got the voice agent.
Uh-huh.
That has to run somewhere in the cloud.
Ah,
That's Python code. That's those bot files we were talking about.
okay.
When you deploy the agent, you're going to deploy that Python code plus just a little bit of scaffolding that sort of forks new processes every time you get a new user come in the front
Ah,
door.
okay.
You can run that anywhere.
Uh-huh.
You can run it on, anywhere you have a Kubernetes set up. If you're
Mhm.
just experimenting, you can run it just one agent at a time anywhere you can run Python code.
Ah.
I tend to deploy this stuff I work at a company that has infrastructure for real-time audio and video, and we have a way you can just deploy PipeCat bots directly to our global infrastructure called PipeCat Cloud. So I
Ooh.
tend to deploy stuff to PipeCat Cloud, but PipeCat code can run, anywhere you can run Python code on the internet. Then the other two pieces are the front end here is a Vercel app. It's like
Mm.
very normal Next.js app with a client-side SDK that's part, again, of the open source PipeCat project with React components kind of optimized for, or that give you a bunch of useful stuff for like real-time voice and real-time video. And then the third piece is the phone number piece. And so many voice AI use cases these days are very much about like calling somebody on the telephone or accepting a telephone call. And so for that, you use somebody like Twilio. You buy a phone number and then you wire up from Twilio a media stream to your Python bot file, wherever you're running that Python bot file. And again, there's a
Ooh.
bunch of hooks in PipeCat to make that super easy.
I see. Okay. So to kind of lay out the ground here is that if you're basically building with this at home, kids, definitely spend a weekend on this. I feel like the payoff is going to be like way worth it. One is that no one's really going deep on this stuff like the way that you are. And then for people who are trying to make apps who want to have a lot more flexibility and control, you can tweak each parts of these types of things. So there's a front facing part, which is like the Next.js app, which is the one that's deployed on Vercel, the interactivity that you see on the game and those types of things. When that app has to make these calls to a server, that's actually just Python code, which is what we saw in those like pipelines that you generated and that were described in those like diagrams that takes these sequence of things. Thankfully, in Python, if you can ask a AI agent, or if you're even reviewing the code yourself, you're just basically defining, hey, this is this person's sets of instructions. This is kind of what they're set to do, and that little loop back kind of stays there. So that will just be deployed to. I like to use Railway. I've deployed Python code to Railway, which makes it really easy. Just have a package. I don't know if they support Kubernetes yet, but I think it has like a Docker file. I could probably take a look or something. That'd be really interesting to kind of take a look at that. So once we get that up there,
We should do a Railway example together.
oh, cool. Yeah, I'm down.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. And then the last part would be Twilio. So Twilio is a service that you can sign up for a phone number, as I understand correctly. And then there's some configuration that happens there for linking the phone number. And is that expecting like a webhook call from the backend server or something? Okay.
Yeah, the basic way it works is that when somebody calls that Twilio phone number that's part of your Twilio account, you can configure in the dashboard for that incoming call to trigger a webhook.
Ah,
And that webhook in the PipeCat world, that webhook starts that PipeCat agent running and then connects back to the Twilio server. So there's bidirectional audio going back and forth.
oh, how magical.
It's really pretty slick.
Whoa. Okay. So I'm thinking about like restaurants. I'm thinking about other things from other different types of, agents and stuff.
Yep.
And so tell me a little bit about the cost for something like this. I just have to run it on my infrastructure and then maybe I'm paying Twilio for the minutes, but I'm not paying any other overhead on top of that. Like PipeCat's open source. So I just
Yeah,
run it.
totally. If you're running the PipeCat code yourself, you're not paying for anything except the calls you're making out to models like GPT-4 or Gemini.
Got it. Those
Uh,
tokens. Yeah.
and depending on how you configure things, this is a whole thing we could go like spend a day talking about. But there's both speech to speech models and there's text mode LLMs.
Mm,
Typically, people are actually using text mode LLMs today for these voice AI use cases because they're more flexible and more steerable
got it.
than the speech to speech models. So you've generally got like a transcription model and then a text mode LLM, and then a
Mm,
voice generation model.
wow.
And one of the things PipeCat does is kind of streams data between all those models at very low latency for you in a configurable way. So you will
Ah,
be paying for transcription, for LLM, and for voice generation.
I
And
see.
then if it's phone, somebody like minutes from somebody like Twilio.
Okay, so you can actually save quite a bit of money because I know that OpenAI tries to combine it all into one model, or different model providers tend to try to do that and they charge a massive overhead. In this case, you can sort of separate it out and kind of choose your types of things depending on the quality and the things that you want as far as configurability. And I think before we get into that, I think we should let them know about this 10K credits that people can get, because you also are offering a course that I just found out about, that's going to be going live, I think, this coming week. Because there's a lot, folks. There's a lot going on here. We have, like, agents and like front end, back end, and a lot of these different moving pieces. And I'm so glad that you actually have some type of system or course that you're putting together to kind of get people like who are interested in this type of thing. People have hit me up. It's like, I'm doing like this exact workflow. Like, I talked with someone yesterday that said that they're trying to figure out how to do a translation layer. So like, you speak English and
Yeah.
it speaks back in French. You could do this with this type of technology, and you're just saying, okay, I want the model to do this translation and then speak it back to that person, and then do that in real time. And like, just imagine the use cases you can have here is just really cool. So if you can, I think, pull up that website for your
Yep.
voice
I switched to
agency.
that tab.
Okay, cool. Here we go. So you tell
And
us a
in
little bit
fact,
more.
there's
Yeah.
a translation bot example in the PipeCat open source repo.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Oh, that's so cool. So we have, if you use the promo code Ray, by the way, I'm not sponsored or anything like this. Kwindla just did this because like he hit me up saying, hey, I'm doing this type of thing. And it's like, I think my audience would really, really love this. I mean, I do this because I love this technology and what people are doing in this field. And I think you should know about it. And these people were really nice enough to do this type of thing. This is really cool. I make no money from this, by the way. So this is just literally, kind of like, I'd love to have you explain a little bit more about this whole course thing.
I mean, I DM'd you because I follow you, and I was like, "Oh, I'd love to talk about this with you because I love watching your stuff on YouTube and following you on Twitter." Yeah. So the story here is like we talk all the time in the PipeCat Discord, and with customers on the commercial side and with friends about voice, and there's just so much. There's so many moving parts, especially going from like a demo all the way to something that you can scale and use with a whole bunch of different real people in production. So a few months ago, I sat down and tried to write down all the lessons we'd learned over the past 2 years of building voice agents, and it worked out to like 16,000 words, which was a little bit of a surprise to me because you take for granted the stuff you've kind of swapped into your own brain. And we did a print run for this great event in New York in February called AI Engineer Summit, hosted by Swix, who probably a lot of you know from like the Latent Space podcast and the AI Engineer events. And then I was talking to Swix about how much people had really liked that voice AI guide, and I really wanted to do something collaborative and really community oriented around it. And I remembered that this platform Maven is a really nice way to offer these kind of community driven courses, series of events. And I'd actually participated in a like really fantastic Maven course last year run by a couple of, AI superstars like Hamel Hussein and Dan Becker. And that had been such a great experience. I was like, okay, let's just, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can sort of do what Hamel and Dan did last year. And the main idea was really, really great overview content, and then super deep dive like topical sessions and office hours for people who are interested in like specific slices of things, like running all the models locally on your own machine, or using
Oh,
only open source models, or
wow.
building like hardware devices that use voice AI. And then credits are the third thing. And
Yes.
Hamel and Dan had attracted so many interesting people and interesting companies. They ended up with some huge amount. I don't even remember what it was, but some huge amount of credits from all the like platforms that you would kind of want to use for general AI development stuff. So I built a course outline. I roped Swix in because he's a friend and he knows so much about everything that's going on with AI.
Yes.
And then I pinged a couple of people I know at companies that like I use their stuff. I was like, hey, remember that like Hamel and Dan course last year? And if we do a voice one, are you into it? And everybody I pinged was into it. So I put the Maven course up. Like I tweeted a couple times about it, and then people came out of the woodwork. And now we're up to $10,000 in credits from like a whole bunch
Sweet.
of really great companies, platforms, tools. Plus, I think we've got like 25 guest speakers.
Oh
So we're
my
just going to run a whole bunch of sessions all through May, and they're all recorded. So you can, come to the ones you want. You can watch the other ones later if you want to. And we're going to have the PipeCat Discord, I think, really be hopping, talking about like all of the different topics that we're covering in the course.
That is incredible. This is the year that everyone talks about for these agents. And it's literally for us to discover what these things can really do in this world. And I am just so delighted that you even hit me up and said, "Hey, like I have this thing." It's like, dude, this is what people need right now. And not only that, we basically have the master himself, who's been in the weeds of things. There's a lot of really intricate details that you need in some of this planning. So to have someone alongside you to take you through this type of offering, as a community, to join in the Discord, other people who are passionately building, I definitely highly encourage you guys to go check it out. I put a little link there. It says rfer.me/voiceray. So if you want, you can definitely go ahead and check it out there as far as that type of thing. I also have a QR code. So if you're actually watching this right now, like on a TV or something, let me see if I can kind of switch to my screen. And so that way you can kind of see it. So all you have to do is basically just scan this little guy here. And that should basically take you right to where this course is located at. So just go ahead and on their TV, just go ahead and pop your phone out, scan this type of thing, and it should take you exactly to this URL. So you can go ahead and basically that gets you the coupon code applied. So instead of paying $500, you just pay $400. But then getting into this will get you that 10K in basically credits and so forth. And as far as like the course outline here that we have defined below. So these are all the different providers, right? So like Modal, Tavis, Lime, Cerebrium, OpenPipe, right? That's pretty cool. Fireworks, Deepgram, Vapey as well. That's pretty cool. PipeCat Cloud. So we can even, like we were talking about infrastructure to deploy, we can even deploy this on PipeCat Cloud itself for like running these agents and stuff. So that way you don't have to think about like deployments and things. That's really, really cool. Wow. And so this is the outline you guys have. So it's basically the overview of the core technology, deploying agents to production, and then a special series like on the demo and programming stuff. So definitely, yeah, if you're an AI engineer, if you're tinkering, I feel like this is going to be, this is already pretty fire. Just the offerings itself, like you're saying, and then just the community as well for people to come together to share their passions as well. A lot of people are actually pretty excited in the chat. I could see. I want to build something around this that I can use with some Indian phone number providers instead of Twilio? ? It's open source.
Oh, sure. So one of the phone number providers in India I've worked with a bunch is Plivo, Plivo. You can find them just, if you search Plivo. They do a bunch of really good stuff with phone numbers and SMS and voice in India, and they do some PipeCat stuff too. They are one of the companies that like contributes PRs and supports open source development on PipeCat.
Sweet. That's really amazing to know. Wow. I've been wanting to build a Mac app that would work as a real-time voice assistant using MCP. MCP is the rage right now. Right?
Yeah. There's an MCP like service in PipeCat that lets you call out with just a little tiny bit of configuration, kind of minimal configuration. You can like hook into any MCP server. And one of the great things about open source is if that MCP component in PipeCat doesn't do exactly what you want it to do, you can write another one or you could submit a PR. But my colleague at Daily, Vanessa, did a really great MCP demo, which we could find and link to, in the show notes or in the comments, because I think I just posted that about a week ago.
Wait.
It was a great demo because she used 2 different MCP servers. So like the voice agent could choose dynamically which MCP server to use just based on the flow of the conversation.
No way. So wait, hold on. Are you saying that right now I can call my MCP server and tell Cursor to cook whatever, and it's just going to do its thing while I'm out on the beach sipping Mai Tais and doing whatever, and like literally it's just going to talk to my computer at home, do its thing, and then you probably even give me feedback and say, hey, I finished it. Like, Here's a link. And it's just like, yeah, that looks pretty good. It's like, can you then move this to the left? And by the way, I'm out here. I need a pizza. Can you go ahead and order that too? So it's like,
You
What?
could basically program with just AirPods. Like, just put
Oh
your
my
AirPods
God,
in,
bro.
you know,
Stop.
and
Stop.
then talk to your MCP cursor server.
If anyone does this, I have a community challenge for you. If anyone in the community hooks this thing up with the MCP server, gets the phone number, I'm going to get you live on stream. Oh, I mean, you have 10K credits to play around with just after enrolling in this type of thing. Oh my God. Okay, I think I know what I'm doing for the next, I don't know what, the next month. That is so cool. So Dutton says, this makes me think one day that I'll be able to take an entity that recorded, talk to an entity that recorded an old VHS family movie. So yeah, I mean, yeah, being able to talk to your data, right? I think that's just really rich. And so another use case kind of makes me think about here is I think about law, I think about medicine, I think about these other like financial sensitive type of things. So because it's open source, I can deploy the source code on machines that are running locally because it looks like you have a local version there. And then, the Twilio phone number is only just calling directly in and just basically streaming that to your local infrastructure in that case. So then, you would have to have like a ngrok or some type of thing that connects out to Twilio to the internet. But that would just be between you and that local machine. And that loopback will just be in a container. I imagine if people have like an AWS or some type of like secure, HIPAA approved type of thing, they can also do that too with all those constraints and stuff like that. So I guess there's a lot of
Totally right.
opportunities. Wow.
There's a
Yeah.
few different ways we see like big companies deploying this stuff. One is exactly what you described, where they run the bot and their company knowledge base, within their perimeter, so that they're not deploying anything outside like their virtual private cloud. But they might still call out to Google or to Gemini or to AWS Bedrock for the LLM inference. Other people are like, I'm not even going to make any API calls, like a super secure, like a hedge fund or something like that. They're like, no, we don't ever give anybody our data. So they run something like Llama or Quinn, open source models. They run on GPUs that are like in their data center.
Whoa.
And then the third way is, as you said, you can run this stuff on your home network. You can run this stuff on your own personal desktop and have like an ngrok or a Tailscale connection out to whatever other services you need. And then when you're on the beach, you're actually talking to your desktop at home.
MCP server loopback. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, this is. Oh man, I don't. I don't even know why I talked to you today because this is going to send me down a whole nother rabbit hole. But I think that's
I'm
why we have
about the local model stuff for robotics too. Like,
robotics.
Give me 1 second.
Oh my God, robotics with MCP servers. It's over, man. It's so over. What?
I with some friends at a hackathon a couple months ago, we built a little LLM powered voice controlled robot with a camera that could recognize people's faces. And you're talking about like you never have enough time to finish your projects that you start. We did it for the hackathon, and for like 3 months I've been meaning to clean up that code and post it, because when the little robot drives around and it like remembers your face and it like remembers what you talked to it about, it was a really fun hackathon project.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We're just scratching the surface, by the way. And you can do this because we have these frameworks in place, because those interconnectivity pieces are finally coming together. And it just so happens, as other people make these protocols like MCP, it's like the Bluetooth for these agents, right? So the MCP can just say, hey, I'm talking to you in plain English. I don't know what your protocol is, but I want this. Can you do this? Yes, I have these capabilities. And then now interact back and forth. And yeah, like the dream is I'm on the beach. I call Cursor on my home computer, it cooks, and then like it gives me a pizza too. And while actually writing code and tells me if it's, I can see my app. It's like, okay, this is now working, or there's a bug report from a user. I want to fix this and I don't have time to go to my home machine. Let me send it a text, or let me just call and explain the problem. And then it just does its thing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go work on this PR. I'll get back to you. I got you. And then, man, this is.
One of the really fun things lately for me is that exactly what you said about like the standard protocols kind of coming into the right shape for these problems. Like there was a lot of really good work on agents frameworks since kind of GPT-4 was released. But most of it was about text-based agents, and you're sending text back and forth primarily, maybe images too. You're not needing to operate at like the hard real-time constraints that you need to operate at if you're talking like with your voice, because people really expect a voice conversation to be fast.
Yeah,
And if you have to wait 6 or 8 seconds for the LLM to respond, like nobody's going to do that.
that's right.
So what we think of as the real-time agent problem domain is just different. There's a bunch of like very specific parts that you have to get right, and they have a different shape for voice conversation and for voice and video conversation than they do for the text agents. So PipeCat is that voice agent framework. I mean, that's, I think, how you would describe it in 2025. I used to call it an orchestration layer for
Yeah.
real-time AI, which, that makes sense to me. But like when we're talking to a broader audience, like PipeCat is the voice agent framework. And it's been really fun to see like the chat completions API from OpenAI really lets you do kind of a bunch of different things in a flexible way. And actually a bunch of models and APIs support that now. And then MCP lets you call out to tooling in this standardized way. And then the PipeCat APIs are like that third standard that is emerging specifically for the real-time use cases, that gives you the flexibility to kind of build on any platform, build with any tools, build cross-platform on web, iOS, Android, C++. I kind of think about what PipeCat has turned into is it's like the React for real-time AI. So you've got this toolkit that kind of everybody's now using, and everybody's contributing to it. And there's a whole bunch of great sample code, a whole bunch of, increasingly good documentation. And that standardization is really unlocking a whole bunch of fun, useful voice AI stuff.
That's awesome. So where people can get started with this is just basically going to just pipecat.ai, right? Just right straight up to,
Yeah.
Okay. And
I
then,
got to find the right tab.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pipecat.ai.
Cool.
And that links to both docs and Discord and the GitHub repo. Sorry, that was 3 boths. That links to the docs, the GitHub repo, and the Discord.
That's awesome. Yeah, because people are talking about their experience and stuff. And Myron's is like the repo actually goes through the new Devin DeepWiki docs generator. So that's really interesting. So he's just actually talking about this here for PipeCat. And then Laurent, this says that I like PipeCat over LiveKit because PipeCat doesn't enforce the join room model. You can directly handle audio from Twilio over a WebSocket instead of having to use a SIP. Oh,
I think that's going to just the truly kind of vendor neutral, truly open source nature of stuff matters, especially when everything's new. We're all trying to figure it out together. We're all trying to figure out what the right patterns are for building this new real-time AI stuff. So we all need to have the flexibility to kind of experiment, mix and match tools. And that's the goal of PipeCat.
That's really cool. Yeah, because people are going to see these different things, and as far as like ease of use or all these types of things, and as far as us who are engineers, we're still discovering these things. I think that the big advantage of PipeCat right now is the fact that, like you say, there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of different tunable types of things. The community is really large now and growing. And there's a lot of people trying to participate in this because they're seeing it. Like, for example, you're getting a lot of PRs from people in India to support specific frameworks and like phone number systems in that, which is amazing, right? And it's just all across the board, people are using this for enterprise and people are using for these types of things. And so I really like that type of thing. And yeah, if you have another demo or something that we can show, that'd be really cool. Or we can do more of this demo game just to kind of show people who are just joining in right now. I feel like they've been kind of, oh yeah, this is really cool to see the behind the scenes.
There's one other thing, like I do think is worth talking about, because you've got such a broad range of people in your audience, including people who are like training models and working on the machine learning foundations. And if you want to get into that, the PipeCat community is a great way to do that too.
Ooh.
We have a open source small native audio model for this like problem called turn detection, which is how do you know when I'm done talking and the LLM should respond. And that model is all the training code, all the data is available in the GitHub repo. And I just want to show you how it works because I think it's really cool.
I love this stuff.
So I'm going to connect to this super simple demo.
Hello there, I am chatbot, ready to assist. How may I help you today?
I'm looking at your logs and I see that you can tell me whether something I'm saying is complete or incomplete when I pause briefly talking. Is that right?
Yes, I can analyze your speech for completeness even with pauses. Try me.
Okay, I want to drive from San Francisco to San Jose. How far is that?
It's about 50 miles. Anything else I can help you with regarding that trip?
And I know you're not just analyzing my text transcription, because you're looking at my audio. So if I do something like if I say, "What is happening now?" You didn't think that was complete because I drew out the now.
That's correct. I'm analyzing the audio.
So this
Whoa.
project is at Smart Turn, PipeCat.aa-smart turn or /smart-turn, and it's a small audio model that you can participate in building data sets for. You can train it if you have a GPU locally, or on modal. You can just sort of go modal start train.py, and you can train a new version of this model. If you speak a language other than English, you can help us build a data set for this model. So I really love the fact that people in the PipeCat community are going super deep on the hardcore tech stuff and on the application level, like best practices and everything in between.
Oh my goodness. The crowd is going crazy right now on the stream.
And this is the only native audio turn detection model that's open source.
Open source.
So
oh my gosh.
it's completely open source, and it felt like it's funny because I always said, like, we had so much to do with the orchestration layer. We were never gonna train models. We were just gonna kind of build service like integrations for all of the models, but nobody had built a native audio turn detection model. So over Christmas break, when I didn't have to go to a lot of meetings or go visit customers, I was like, okay, I'm just going to see how far I can get on a native audio turn detection model.
Oh my
And
gosh.
that was what I spent my Christmas break on, and I got far enough that I was like, okay, there's not just a fun project here, which is absolutely true, but also something genuinely useful here. Let's see if we can get a bunch of people collaborating on this one.
So someone's like, oh, that's what the LinkedIn post was about. Yeah, sometimes you just have to see it to really, truly feel and kind of understand the power here. And I also see Core ML. So I can ship a native app that doesn't have to talk to an API that can understand this turn detection. And then I could run code.
That's right. In fact, for that little robot, I run the Core ML model on my laptop, and I talk to the robot kind of over my local area network using like a peer-to-peer WebRTC connection, and everything is super fast, super local. I think the inference time for this model with Core ML is like 150 milliseconds or something like that. Wow. And if somebody is like a Core ML expert, I think they could cut that to like 20 or 30 milliseconds. We just, there's not enough hours in the day to do all the optimization I would like to do on every platform.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, if someone's in the crowd who is really into this, I mean, not only is it going to benefit you, but it'll benefit the entire open source community. I know a couple of folks who are working, I think it's Argomax or something, that are working on like the Whisper stuff. And then I know a couple of people who are really specific into like tuning these models, specifically for MLX and also for Core ML as well. Wow, what is this?
Whisper is great, and we didn't use it for a long time for real-time voice AI, because out of the box, even if you kind of do a little bit of optimization at the Python level, it's like 800 milliseconds time to first token from Whisper. But a bunch of people, because it's open source, like spent a bunch of time over the past year, and now there are several platforms that host Whisper with more like a 250 millisecond time to first token, which is awesome. And that's kind of the range you have to be in for the real-time voice AI. Like that front end to your transcription has to be, under 300 milliseconds, so that you have enough time to like respond to the user in like 800, 900 milliseconds total, counting all the steps. I'll throw out one more thing about that smart turn model. We put up a data set collection with people's permission set of games at turntraining.pipecat.ai. This is another Vercel app. It's another open source repo, but you can like get your friends to play these games, and that contributes data back to the open data sets that we use to train the smart turn model. And what I always say to people is, if you want your interactions with voice AI to be better than your friends, play these games, because then your voice will be in the data set, and for all of time the AI agents will recognize your speech patterns better than people who don't.
That's a really good point. So people right now, the hot topic I see like on Gary Vee and these other type of influencers, they're like SEO, AI SEO, AI SEO. Like, how do you do that? It's like, yeah, you have to train the models, use your voice. And then
Right.
you're then basically imagine my voice has the most amount of hours because I do shows every day or something, and then I use this thing a lot. And if you train the models that everyone else uses, you become like everywhere basically.
Yep, you're the reference
Oh
for
my
what the AI
gosh.
models think is reality.
That's so cool. I think JJ had a question about, can non-developers join in on the course that you're talking about?
Absolutely. So the target is people who are interested in building things, and that could be you're a product manager. We have a bunch of executives from big companies that have joined the course because it's for them it's what's the landscape.
Mm.
And then obviously if you're a developer and you've been building this stuff, it's a good fit for you because a lot of the content will be kind of will go as deep as people want technically. But we have a bunch of product and kind of executive level people who are in the course and are excited about it.
Oh, that's really cool. And if you want to scan this, go ahead and scan this code. If you're watching on your TV, you should be able to get right to this website, and it applies the coupon, the $400 coupon. So that's basically, I have this link. It's called I'll also have a link in the description. So if you're kind of scrolling through and you want to kind of check it out, rfer.me/voicearray, it should basically take you right to this where this course is at. By the way, this is not sponsored or anything. I'm literally just doing this because I care a lot about this stuff, and I feel like as a builder, when something comes into my roadmap or whatever is going on, I feel like you should know about it. And I just love how everyone's coming together as a community, and I'm really all about this type of community building. And Kwindla, as someone I actually saw at a demo at GitHub, and so he was demoing PipeCat before the real-time voice agents and of real-time anything, the chat from ChatGPT showed up. And it blew my mind that this was already something that these people had been seriously working on as a problem to solve. And as it keeps evolving, you can kind of see the compounding effect that keeps happening. And my favorite thing is the fact that, it's open source, and we're already seeing the power of how we're able to, like try different models, have different people come in with different parts of the infrastructure. And then the chaining effect. We're only getting a preview of this. I'm talking about this dream of like calling my phone to do these things. He's talking about the robot that can remember your conversation, right? Like these types of things have so many different applications in so many fields. I was just thinking about my friend with dementia. If I have something that's in the house that's kind of monitoring, and as he's doing different things or misses certain words, it'll keep track of those words, and it'll have a lot more context over time to help him, guide him in his life so he doesn't feel frustrated. And so maybe a caregiver can come in that's new, that can make them feel heard, right? I think the biggest frustration in communication and these language models are bridging the gap between your ideas from like an idea to code to like maybe a person with a language issue to bridge that gap to. There's a lot of, this is just one aspect in healthcare, right? That we're even talking about, but there's many others. And I think people are, it's really easy to just dismiss something when you only see like ChatGPT and it doesn't give you a response. Obviously, there's a lot of other applications and different things that we can do behind the scenes. And the open source thing is a big deal because we can take that as engineers and start to build on top of them. And we see how fast these effects can happen. I feel like MCPs were just announced, this year or something? And I feel like that's been like a multi-year thing with the amount of effort that comes out week to week, day to day. So a lot to keep track of. And I think the starting off with this community in this course is going to be probably like a really good way to kind of get you, started in this field. And then the second part of it, I think, is just the fact that there's these $10,000 in compute credits from all these different people who are going to be joining in because they just understand, like the quality here and also the mission. So this is like a lot of stuff that's going to be going into play. And in fact, I like the fact that I can learn and start deploying it and playing around with this, as soon as possible. And I think, like you're saying, beyond, technical stuff, if you're like a C level or you're at these other types of levels, you try to understand to use these things. I feel like to me, I need to spend some time. I feel like this is going to be a good investment in my education. It's going to teach me a lot more in a different perspective of trying to play around with these language models. And for me, I like to play with different models to get a sense of feel of like how they operate. And in a different modality with voice, like you're saying, we're like it may actually you may find out uh, any biases you had for a certain model, it may actually perform a lot differently when you're starting to do voice interactions, right? Like I didn't realize that the Gemini Flash could be so good at these like multi-turn game things, right? Like I just always kind of dismiss it. I was like, oh, Gemini Flash, but I'm always feeding it like code context. I'm always feeding it documentation context, and like there's a lot of other intelligence in these models that we just don't know. And if we kind of feed the data in a different way, video, audio, they could perform a lot differently or kind of shrink the tasks down to something like in this type of way. I feel like that's a massive benefit. That's wow. Wow. So I highly encourage people for investing in their education. I do a lot. I like to buy books. I like to check stuff out like this, and really, really amazing. So to get started, yeah, pipecat.ai to get started. Definitely go ahead and check out that course. I know a lot of people have some questions, going to try to go over some, but please share some more stuff, Kwindla, while I kind of look through some of these comments. And
What you're saying about healthcare use cases, I'm so inspired by some of the things we see people building for elder care, for safety monitoring in healthcare situations, for helping healthcare professionals like spread the burden of work that they have with like paperwork out and give it to an AI so they can spend more time with patients. Another area where I'm similarly just blown away is what people are starting to build in education. And if you can have a personalized tutor that you talk to with your voice and that dynamically generates, reference references that you can follow, and UI, even we're starting to see people build dynamically generated UIs for education apps. It's just totally new world. And to give every kid in the whole world access to a really great, completely patient, very flexible, personalized tutor, I'm excited to see what education looks like as the kids who are just starting to use these tools emerge, at the end of high school with a
right.
totally different experience under their belt.
Yeah, I just saw a demo of someone hooking up an MCP server that would go talk to Firecrawl to scrape documents on. He had an obscure library that he wrote, and it's like no one knows about this library, no LLM knows about this, and he showed like in 5 minutes how it hooked it up to Cloudflare, and so now it turned it into an MCP server. So in Cursor, he's just chatting now with his documentation, and then imagine that for education, right? So like just that connection of like I want to learn how this documentation works now. I can chat with it. I can have voice type of interactions. It's calling the MCP server in this feedback loop. Maybe you can have something else that's kind of processing documents in a more reliable way. But like just getting started, right? Like just I want to learn this new thing. It takes very little setup. It can automate itself.
You and I
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I were talking just before we went live about how programming is a craft, and we both feel like we learned it by, learning from other people and by reading books and by watching tutorials and by reading academic papers. And that process is actually accelerated now with that kind of personal tutor or personal research assistant or however you in your mind think about it. I think there's a lot of commentary about how AI might disrupt some economic sectors by replacing people, and that's a really important conversation to have. But I also think that in education, it's a great example of how AI is not going to replace anybody. It's just going to raise the possibilities for everybody, including people who may not have had access to the most expensive kind of things we provide in our economy. There's like a ton of education research that shows that the single biggest intervention you can make in a kid's education is a one-on-one tutor.
Hmm.
And that's been replicated by lots and lots of different studies over many years. Well, now we can provide a one-on-one tutor for every single kid in the world. It's within, it's cheap enough to, hook people up to a great LLM with voice that every single kid in the world can have their own one-on-one tutor. And I just think about that all the time. We're not replacing classroom teachers.
Right.
You're going to go to school, but there are 25 kids in the class, and that fabulous teacher that you have in that class is going to structure the education for you and help you, in in a in classroom context, but then you also have these AI tools that are going to change kind of the dynamic for each individual kid in individualized ways.
Yeah, for me, it feels like it creates community because as you go through the same journey as someone else who's different from you and you're learning the same subject, when you come together to build a project or apply the learnings, that's when you learn actually at an accelerated pace for me because now I'm applying this theory and it becomes beyond that. And then you're sharing in the same experience as someone else. And I think that's the magic of humans. And that's what we do all across society to make new and novel inventions because we're bringing in our own life experience together. And these types of things are sort of what I call like enablers, right? So to me, I'm a big fan of community. I think the response from people here in the live stream joining in, we're in that same boat right now. And I totally like love and respect everything that everyone's doing here for just moving this together. And I really appreciate everyone who's just been able to like join in on the stream. And if you're definitely enjoying this, definitely share the stream out with other people. This is, we're still in the early beginnings. I think it's still kind of blowing my mind, right? Like imagine being around when the internet was just invented, when people were still in the garages coming up with this concept of Google and coming up with the concept of YouTube and like, you know, talking about it like, hey, I think this thing could be really cool and come together with that. Like you're around the people who are wanting to be in this boat and move this thing forward and, you know, applaud yourself for showing up and sharing this and having that curiosity because this is going to keep, you know, driving this type of thing. And a lot of people are really interested here on the live stream about, you know, and kind of blown away, like just like I am right now of like, I mean, we're just scratching the surface here, and like I'm gonna go definitely start playing with this stuff. So, yeah, Laurent says we started developing our own voice AI agents, but PipeCat's so mature and well written that we're just going to switch to using them. I think, yeah, the framework is very, it's still developing and very robust, obviously, and there's a lot of different things you can start doing this. With respect to robots, is there anything interesting to say about real-time OS extensions, or is this AI stuff just going straight to GPU, thus not requiring real-time OS stuff?
Yeah, it turns out you don't really need real-time OS stuff for where we are now. And Ray, I think I totally agree with what you said about we're just scratching the surface. So in the same way that like Andre Karpathy had that really influential, I think, tweet last year about how the operating system is going to look very different once everything is AI native. And sort of the LLM is like the OS kernel. And then you've got, you know, RAG or other systems as memory. You've got a different kind of input-output flow. In that world, I think of PipeCat as being the I/O and some of the system drivers
Yes.
in, you know, that are surrounding the LLM and making it possible for the LLM to do its job. And as we get, you know, 2, 5 years, whatever, out in the future, I do think it's going to very much influence OS design. The fact that all of software is going to move to being AI native. But we don't need any of those changes now because like a real-time operating system is thinking about things as, you know, 10 millisecond time slices. We're more like 100 millisecond time slices above the level of the core PipeCat services. And the core PipeCat services can operate at that 10 millisecond time slice pace reliably enough for all these applications today. But I love talking about OS level stuff.
Yes.
So like you should stop me because I will, I will just want to talk about kernel drivers forever.
I think maybe towards the end we can kind of deep dive on some nerding out of stuff and kind of share some war stories. Because for those who don't know, I mean, I used to work in the like over the air updates system stack at Apple and worked on a lot of different like very low level things to very high level system stuff. And even in UI interface design, all kinds of things like that. And so, you know, I worked there for about 12 years and have vast numbers of experience. And the nerding out that you can do at companies like that is just actually extreme because people like, I talked to a guy who literally wrote the thing, you know, from like Next era, you know, like there's 30 years ago, you know, they came up with this OS and like this concept for doing things on the network that still apply today and that are still referenced today in code, but just at a higher abstraction of the layer. And so those decisions that they made are very important for like, you know, this knowledge for how you build other architectures on top of that. And, you know, it can like these people are very opinionated because they've been doing this for a long time. And so you have to kind of weigh these types of things. And I, like that type of discussion, I feel like I don't get a lot on YouTube. And so just having someone like you with your experience, Kwindla, is kind of fun to kind of talk about that. Maybe we can kind of nerd out a little bit towards the end. So that way people...
I would love to because like you, my background is in like low level systems, networking, packet switching optimization code. So I have lots of opinions, but also, as you're saying, like everything evolves, and you can't be too rigid in your opinions.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think just kind of it was really interesting for like the Apple Watch project, right? So you have to make a lot of trade-offs for a really tiny device, and there's a lot of magic and things that you have to do. So for those who are kind of like wondering, when you have these big systems like the iPhone actually came from something bigger, which was the Mac OS operating system. And so that operating system was already there and running. And somebody made a decision when they were starting the project saying, okay, we should just take everything we have here because we already have everything like Bluetooth. We have things like voice. And instead of rewriting the code and doing everything from scratch, we can just take this mature system and start to build on top of it. And that's what people don't really talk about very publicly. And they just kind of write that off, actually. It's like this mature experience is kind of your moat. And because it already works really well, and a lot of things have been defined for the last 20 plus years at the time when the phone was being made, they're able to kind of add more and it's make like very narrow specific choices for that platform. So when you have a phone, you're not connected to power anymore. Now you have to operate without any power. So then you're making, these trade-offs in like, how long can a process run for a given time before like things start to die out, right? And then now when you get to like a little Casio, like a small little watch type of thing with the, like 350 milliamp size battery, you're talking about like, yeah, you can't do everything you can do on a phone, right? And so you take a lot of things for granted and you have to make a lot of trade-offs, and things start to get really hairy because any type of design that you've already assumed to be true could actually not be true. So then you have to actually start testing them, right? And it's literally just them run the code and see what breaks type of thing. It gets you, to me, I feel like if there's anything I could share is like, don't overthink it, try to run it and just see what breaks and test your assumptions. Just, you have ways of doing things. And it's literally like basic scientific theory of just like, let's just run it and see what happens. Like how bad can things get? And that gives you a little bit more breadcrumbs to focus on. So that way you don't get too overwhelmed and not do anything at all. I guess it's kind of like my biggest takeaway. Whenever you have these big systems that have to shrink down, especially at these much smaller levels, testing and kind of using that as your guiding light to kind of start out with to help ease your anxiety. Well, it helped me. It's like, yeah.
It's one of the great things about so much computing now being open source. You can dive so deep on any one thing that interests you, and then switch to the next thing. But, the whole Linux operating system is open source. All the great, front end frameworks now are totally open source. You can figure out what every single piece of those systems does if you just spend some time reading the source code, asking questions on mailing lists and in Discord, and running it. As you said, run it yourself, make some change. You probably broke it. That's okay. Try again.
Yeah, I think that's a really big deal. And I'm so glad that your repo is open source, because that way people can start running it. And then the Discord's huge because now you can ask people in the community like, hey, this broke down. What am I doing wrong? It's like, oh yeah, these environment variables you have to configure, you actually have to put them over here. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, for this platform, you have to do it over here. It's like, okay, that's weird. It's not really true. Okay, it's like, yeah, then like, let's go ahead and update that in the documentation so that someone else who comes in like you can see where to find that type of thing. And yeah, it's kind of funny because in the early days of Apple, like no one was allowed to write anything down. So like whenever you show up to a meeting or anything, a whiteboard, people will start talking about some infrastructure. And then like after the meeting, they have to wipe everything. And anyone who wrote notes, like they would just literally go over and just throw it away. And they had these like secure bins. Like the bins were not even allowed to like leave the building, like couldn't go to a regular trash can. There's like a company that comes and collects them. And it's like, and so everything there when I started out was bonkers. I had to find out by talking to people, and nothing was written down. So either the code or the people, and like, there's so much code, you can't get through every part of the stack. So you have to like get 3 people in the room and just say, hey, like, this is what I think is going on just from what I played with, but like, tell me more. And so you'd leave the meeting even just with your head even exploding because you're just like, this is way deeper than I thought. It's really
so
interesting.
Much.
Yeah.
so much like deep knowledge in computer science history. When I was in grad school, I would write some chunk of networking code, and I was trying to learn how that stuff worked, and then some friend who'd been, I went to grad school right from college, and I basically didn't know anything, and so some friend who'd been at Apple or Sun or Santa Fe Institute for a few years before grad school would look at my code and they'd be like, no, 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 here's how you do it, and I'd be like, oh, cool, thanks. And then, but every once in a while, they'd be wrong because I was trying to do something different. I mean, it did not happen very often, but
Right.
like every once in a while, I'd be like, no, no, like I actually, I did it this way because I'm trying to do this thing that like Next, Apple, Sun, they didn't happen to need to do, and that would be like a super interesting conversation. And then fast forward, like I think you do have to like recognize that everything evolves. Like we in computers, we reinvent the wheel every
Hmm.
generation, but that reinventing the wheel allows us to like rebuild stuff, and that's happening now for AI native things.
Hmm.
I remember maybe in like 2014 or 2015, like I read the networking code of the first like relatively early, I think, Node.js open source code base, and I had that same reaction that my friends in grad school had to my code. I was like, no, the person who wrote this networking code has never written an HTTP stack before. This is not how you do it. But then I also was like, but it'll get there, because what Node.js is trying to do it is actually different from what the Linux kernel is trying to do in some small but important ways. So like we're reinventing the wheel, but we're one layer up the stack, and we will get there. And I have that feeling
Mm.
about a lot of AI development. Like we're all trying to figure out like what does AI native tooling for X look like? And
Oh,
X, because AI is so broadly applicable, X is like literally everything we do with computers.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I like this topic and I want to kind of get into it a little bit more because this is something that I've been thinking a lot about because I've been thinking a lot about I worked on file systems. I worked on like, compression and like shipping, thousands of update patches across all these different device types and different architectures. And so the thing that just seems really obvious to me, but I don't, maybe someone's working on this, maybe it's not. It's like, why haven't we figured out like a compression algorithm for laying out the bits for all of these models that run natively on specific architectures? Like, let's just do
Mhm.
one for ARM. Let's just do an ARM based LLM file system layout that can work really well for this type of thing. This is just really pie in the sky. I haven't really like built my own like bit by bit LLM. I mean, I probably would start to if I start to kind of think about this discussion, but it's like, I think it'd be really interesting of like, there's one part of it of like actually delivering the actual model to your devices. And then where do they sit on the internet? Because there's these, ways of distributing software. And what can be like done, that's like the smallest viable type of thing that you need. And then what are the other things can we bootstrap around it, right? So imagine if there's like frameworks or different things that are built into the core part of like an Apple operating system or an Android operating system, or maybe like an ARM architecture that comes in. It's like, hey, I'm very familiar. There's this similar pattern that shows up in the way that we lay out LLMs in these specific architectures and file systems. So instead of like shipping that as like a package, why don't we just ship that as a framework? Because this thing repeats itself all over like 70% of all these files. And so we could just write that as a framework so that anytime somebody wants to do this request, we just lay that out, magically. And then we just wait for the other bits that are very specific to an LLM to arrive, and then that can be delivered. So then now you shrink a package down from, whatever there was in multi-gigabytes into even smaller files. And people are like, oh my gosh, it's magic. It's like, yeah, this is just thinking about them in computer
There's
frameworks. Yeah.
three projects that I think are pushing on that in really interesting ways that I try
Ooh.
to keep up with and try to look at the source code for sometimes. One is GGML,
Oh.
which is just ggml.ai. I've got the tab up.
Oh.
Um, GGML is a few, people who have like intense computer science, historical and practical knowledge, trying to figure out how to optimize LLMs to run yourself on your own hardware.
Wow.
And they've gone through kind of a bunch of iterations over the past year and a half or so, But I just look at the GGML source code whenever a new model is released and they start supporting the new model, because I'm like super interested in how they're compressing and optimizing to way oversimplify like the weights coupled with the
Wow.
inference code for large language models. NVIDIA's doing a similar thing in a NVIDIA specific stack way for their GPUs called TensorRT.
Huh.
And then Hugging Face has this amazing, transformers library, which is so fundamental. Everything is supported in transformers, and if you want to know how, the difference between how like one large language model works and how another works, I just look at the transformer source code and I compare like Llama 3 to Quinn, and I'm like, oh, okay, I see from the transformer source code that there are these differences.
Hmm.
Because even when you read the research papers, it's
Yeah.
it's hard to sort of tease out like what people are doing differently in the different model eras or
Oh,
like different model evolutions.
okay.
But if you read the transformer source code, I mean, it takes a little bit of time to figure out how it's laid out and where everything is. But if you read the transformer source code, that's sort of the source of truth for the most standard implementation of all these open source models now.
Oh, wow. Super duper helpful. This is helping me, but I imagine it's helping a lot of other people right now in the chat. I know people are talking about, they're like, hey, is it only me in the chat? No, it's everyone's here. Actually, it's participating. And I found out that if I type stuff into my platform, it may not show up on X, but it does show up on YouTube and it shows up everywhere else and stuff. And I know people are kind of nerding out a little bit. So people are saying like, this is a great discussion. I'm glad that we're able to kind of talk about this there's not a lot of information of people talking more about discovery. And I feel like we should, talk more about these types of things in public. And if you're kind of checking this out, definitely check out Kwindla. So your handle at Kwindla. You're on X, and where else can people find you?
X is the place that this discussion has kind of gravitated towards. There's so much good AI ML stuff on X. You can also always email me. I'm Kwindla at daily.co. And I try to be in the PipeCat Discord, though I get behind in Discord, and then I have to spend the weekend catching up.
That's really, really cool. I think it's just really amazing that first that you're able to just kind of talk about this technology and then like have a community around it, and people are just really actively contributing to it. And we're still trying to define what this all means. And I want to give a big shout out to Chris Battenfield, who just became a member on my YouTube channel. Thank you, Chris, for becoming a member. You got the little official badge, which is pretty cool. And make sure, Chris, and everyone else who's just watching, that you go ahead and check out this course that Kwindla is offering. And the course is actually going to be found. I think, let me see if I can share my screen here. And so this will get you the 10K in compute credits that you need to start literally playing around with these voice agent models. And there's a coupon code if you just use Ray at the checkout, and you'll basically get $100 off on this. So basically you spend $400, you get to hang out and watch these videos, not only live, but there's also recorded as well. You get the credits for all these different platforms, from like OpenPipe, so that you can deploy the models, like the backend part, and then the front end parts you can deploy on your favorite platforms. Fireworks, they have hosting of all these different models, Deepgram, Vapey for voice agents as well, PipeCat Cloud. There's a whole bunch of things you can use here, like a lot of really great credits. Cerebrum for inference as well, right? So the really fast inference, which you would need for these types of technologies. And the course will just outline, a lot of the stuff that you need to kind of just get started. We talked a little bit about turn detection, latency, and also it has a GitHub with examples as well. And people were talking about, how can I get some of these things and start playing with them? So if you just go to pipecat.ai, it'll take you to the docs. And also there's like all these different examples that we talked about here. Things like from the game that you can hook up to the smart turn stuff, to running stuff locally, a news chatbot. I mean, there's a whole bunch of examples in here, which are pretty awesome, that people can start playing with and use some of those compute credits to really kind of start getting your hands dirty on that type of thing, as well as like the Discord, which I would highly encourage. So I'll have the descriptions below. And if you're watching right now, like on a TV or something like that, you can just go ahead and scan this QR code. So this QR code will basically take you right to this course, the voice agents. So the voice agents course, let me see if I could find this here. For those who are wondering, it's just going to be located here. It's just go to rfer.me/voicearray, and that'll basically take you right to that Maven course thing where folks can kind of tune in. By the way, this is like not sponsored or anything like that. Literally just me caring about this type of stuff. And I feel like this is something that came into my radar, and I feel like you should know about this. And the other part of it is like, yo, getting you in some of those extra credits is just pretty awesome to play around with, because I don't mind taking some extra compute credits and getting a chance to explore, because there are a lot of different applications and use cases for me to kind of start exploring. I'm right now starting out my own challenge to make my own app and try to, like, not even my own app, but just try to talk to customers and understand what's a really good pain point and problem. And I feel like these are really good examples that can deliver a lot of value right now in the age of AI. Just even that one use case that I talked about of, like, imagine being able to spin up new documentation and talk to their documentation in like 5 minutes. I can have like an MCP server set up on Cloudflare that loops back, and then have it loop in with one of these voice agents. And now I start having a conversation either while I'm walking on a hike, or just even asking in Cursor to loop back for me, right? So it's like there's a lot of interconnected pieces that I can use here that it would be really, really interesting. And I'm definitely going to be building with some of this stuff live, which would be kind of cool. So definitely tune in, check that out if you haven't had a chance to, and subscribe, Ray Fernando 1337. So on X as well, I think PipeCat also has X accounts, which will kind of get you a lot of the information as far as like the releases and cool demos. And this is the game that we ran earlier, where you can start talking to it, and has like the multiple things. Obviously, it has like source code and stuff. So definitely stay tuned for that as well. And then as far as here, you can also follow Kwindla at Kwindla, like you're saying, on X to stay up to date there. And do those types of things. Dang, that's this is pretty massive. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we're kind of just covering. I feel like we're just, like I said, it still feels like we're just scratching the surface, and there's more and more things that we can do here. So, is there anything else that you want to kind of talk about or share?
No, I've kept you a long time this morning, but sometime we should do some live coding together, because it would be fun to build something together.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool. Also, anyone who wants to just drop some ideas in the chat, like, let us know, because maybe we could just go build that. That'd be really cool. Yeah, that'd be cool. Just some live coding sessions, and kind of walk me through as I stumble along how to use these types of things, and kind of figure this out, because this is all new, and it's okay. It's okay. Like, if you don't know, like, dude, web development is totally like foreign to me, right? It's like being such an on-device person, it's like kind of a new era. So I just kind of said, well, I'm learning this, and I have to learn how to do it anyways, and just kind of have to, stumble along. And people have been watching, and I think, the advent of some of these LLMs have helped me a ton in helping me better and quickly understand, okay, I have this concept, let's just apply it here. How would you do it? And then it builds the example for me, right? And it's like, does it run? Yes. Okay, cool. Wow. Let me step through the code now. And so it's just a different way that I learned. I think it's really, really cool. So build a UI generator. To generate what? What type of UI? I think that'd be really, just so I can call and like talk to it and build UIs and stuff. That'd be really interesting. How does PipeCat compare to like LiveKit, and how many concurrent calls can it handle?
Oh, well, I mean, so the PipeCat framework can handle as many concurrent calls as your hosting infrastructure can. And the general model is that you have a little front end to whatever the network transport is that's triggering the voice agents, and then you fork up Python process for every agent. And a typical like virtual CPU on like AWS, depending on what you're doing, I would start with 2 agents per CPU, and then you can go up or down depending on how much stuff you're actually running, how much audio processing you're doing, how much work your Python code is doing. In fact, actually, I just start with 1 Python process per virtual CPU, because then I don't have to debug any issues. And then once I've got something ready to go in production, then I see how many agents will run per CPU.
That's really, really cool. So yeah, the PipeCat code is basically your backend, and that's the scalable system that you have there, that you can deploy for yourself. And then if they wanted to just kind of do less of that deployment part, and they could just use your PipeCat cloud, is that what it is?
Yeah, you can totally use PipeCat Cloud. PipeCat Cloud is like our infrastructure at the company I work at daily, that you can just basically push a Docker container with PipeCat code in it, and we will auto scale it for you.
Sweet.
But I always try to like tell people it's like PipeCat is the thing, and then depending on what you're doing, you should decide where you want to deploy, what commercial services you want to use, if any. Because it matters a lot to me that like people don't feel locked in. People feel like they can always mix and match. People can move around. And I think this person's asking about LiveKit. So in this ecosystem, I think there are some other emerging voice frameworks. LiveKit has one that's really nice. It's built directly on top of like the LiveKit cloud ecosystem, and if you're all in on that ecosystem, it's great. Hugging Face has a really cool like open source real-time voice framework called Fast RTC. And the engineer who's done a lot of the work on that, Freddie, is really great. And I talk to Freddie as often as I can because I love talking to people who are building this stuff. Then higher up the stack, like batteries included kind of frameworks like VAPI, which is participating in the class, and Layer Code, which is participating in the class, give you kind of more stuff all in one, like dashboard, observability, hosting, some helpers for like the specific LLMs that they support. So those are a few. I don't want to like skew the discussion because everybody does things a little bit differently, but I think of those as a little closer to a low code framework than a build it completely yourself in the Python code building block style of PipeCat. So that's sort of a really quick overview of like the landscape. And again, in the course, we'll talk a lot about this stuff because there will be people from a bunch of different companies who can help you with this stuff depending on what your use case, what your goals, what your constraints are.
That's super cool. Wow. This is, I mean, just knowing the stack, I think is just a big part of it, because for me as a problem solver now, I have to put my problem solving hat. It's like, okay, I talk to the customers. What's going to be the best thing for me? Is it going to be this type of infrastructure? Are there privacy concerns? Are there not? You'll get into those, but yeah, go play. I mean, if there's credits to go play, like you'll get to see firsthand, I think what you can kind of start building and what some of the limitations are when you start doing these types of things. So emotional cognitive systems, can we touch that subject, please? So systems that can understand emotion. So I think there's a model that I heard called Hume, right? Can they understand your sentiment and feelings, right?
I really like that Hume model. Some people are using Hume with PipeCat. My understanding, although sometimes people release stuff and I'm behind on it, but I think Hume is audio based. There's also a company I've worked with a lot, which does really cool stuff on the video side. And we haven't even really touched on real-time video avatars, but they are here as well. And I think real-time video is going to hit that same like takeoff point that later this year that voice hit maybe end of last year. And there's a company called Tavis. Again, they're participating in the course. They've got a vision model tuned to understand emotions and situational context. So when you talk to one of the Tavis virtual avatars, sometimes it'll say something like, last time we talked, you seemed like you were a little more tired. You seem like you've gotten more sleep today. Now, it won't do that by default because like that's not necessarily what you want your video avatar to do by default. But if you prompt it and tell it kind of what the boundaries of the conversational interaction you expect are, it really is impressive.
No way. So I'm trying to take a look at this here. So I was looking at in the voice agents course, you actually have $500 in credits from Tavis, TAVUS.io. And in here, we go to the website and I was like, what? What is this? Building blocks? You're kidding me. This...
You can use one of their kind of off the shelf video avatars, or you can make your own with your own like reference video, and then you can prompt it. You can treat it like an API that you can build applications around. You can hook it up to a knowledge base, and then you have a conversation with not just a voice avatar, but a voice and video avatar that can see you through your camera if you turn on your camera.
Oh my God. This is game over, bro. I thought I was just getting into voice today.
video is here, and
Oh,
it's early, but it's here, and it's really
oh,
interesting.
what? This is mind blowing. Oh, and $500. I'll take this. $500 in credits. Let's go.
Yeah. And I think when we loop back
Whoa.
around to things like education use cases, it sure seems to me from like talking to people building on this stuff and experimenting myself, when you have that video component, it does kind of increase that emotional connectedness. It makes the whole interaction feel just that much richer.
That's interesting because people right now are trying to make these AI avatars that go on TikTok. They're just making videos. They're just like literally publishing videos, but it gets engagement so that people interact with their brand. And people are like, imagine if you had a live version, like a live stream one, where this is the person's engaging, it comes back in, it remembers all of your chats that you did, like replying to it.
Yep.
It's like, hey, Ray, welcome back to the stream. Like, what's going on? Like, you said you were leaving to go talk to your mom. Like, is she okay? It's like,
Yeah.
this is, I don't even
I
know
mean,
what
the
I
difference between like TikTok and Instagram was that TikTok was hyper personalized, but recorded content still.
Right.
This next generation of stuff is going to be hyper personalized, live, interactive.
Yeah, this is, and you can build with them. I think that's the other unlock too, right? It's like we as engineers, you're getting the first peek. There's an API, there's credits up there. I mean, go play, like cook. Like, I think this is just one use case we're thinking, and we haven't even just started to think about all the other things that people can start doing. That is absolutely cool. So someone's saying, how does PipeCat compare to Vocode? Compare? Like, I'm not familiar with.
Oh, so we know the Vocode folks. My understanding is the current version of Vocode is actually built on PipeCat, but we should ask them to make sure because I don't want to get that wrong. They've been doing voice for a long time. They built all their own stuff from scratch early on because you had to. There wasn't anything, you know, there wasn't a community yet. There wasn't a good set of open source building blocks. But I talked to the Vocode folks last year, and they were rebuilding on top of PipeCat. Was my understanding at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna link the website.
So that's sort of higher up the stack. They give you more like pre-configured stuff, and PipeCat is kind of lower level, just the Python building blocks.
Got it. Somebody was asking about the Tavus, TAVUS.io for that real-time voice agents. They were trying to build with that. So that's really interesting. Somebody's asking about the course. Is the voice agent course a recorded course or live, or will you run future cohorts?
It is both. It is live. You can join every session we do. You will be able to join live. We will record every session, so you don't have to join live because nobody is going to have time to join every session live. Some people are in time zones where some of the sessions will be hard. So Discord will be available for everybody, and recorded sessions will be available for every session.
Cool. Yeah, and then in the Maven thing, they could basically, this is like the really long link I'm going to put in the chat as well. I have a shortened link as well that'll actually be in the description. And then I have a little QR code that I could show up here for those who are interested. But basically, you just use the promo code Ray, and then you'll get that extra $100 off. So yeah, for $400, basically you'll get all this compute that you can start using with 10K in compute. I mean, go start building that voice thing. $500 in compute just for that, like just to go play. And that's like 10 months worth of, compute that you can start playing with. That's so cool. That 100 minutes per month. And like, you could even go higher if you wanted to. Awesome. And then to me, yeah, like we're just kind of scratching the surface here, like as far as like all the different things. I love all the questions that people are having here because we're happy to answer them while we have this here. So let's see. I have APIs, but is there a better one that's out there? I would love to hear what that kind of better understand that. I have APIs. Voice-driven augmented cognition ecosystems. Think about it. Capture it. Align it. Sure.
We're thinking big. Like,
yeah. Is Phonely AI one of the users of PipeCat? Phonely.ai? I'm not familiar with that.
I know the Phonely team. They're doing great stuff. I don't know whether they're public about what their stack is or not.
So
I try not to like tell people
Right.
publicly things that I might know from,
For
just
sure.
private conversations.
Yeah, exactly. It's just respect out of people's thing, and blazingly fast, effortlessly, with just 5 minutes, learn how to. So this looks like it's a voice agent of some sort, similar to the other ones. Okay.
Yep,
Oh,
voice agent platform for enterprise use cases, focused on telephony, and really, really great team.
wow, this looks amazing. Yeah, I wonder if they're. That's really really cool, man. This. Man, we covered so much today. I feel like we've really kind of touched upon the things as far as like 10K in compute credits. Definitely go sign up for the course for that. It's $400. Use the code Ray. I mean, it's $500 and you get $100 off. Definitely that. Touched a lot about like voice agents and kind of what a demo of that looks like, just getting started. Taking a quick look under the hood of what that looks like in code and setting up these pipelines. And so we learned that there's like a couple of different abstractions there. There's like a front end web app that you interact with that shows basically the UI. And then there's a back end server powered by like PipeCat that runs that framework. And that when you open up a WebSocket, will do all this communication. And that's kind of the back end that communicates to these different language models. Gemini Flash, I think, being one of them, to do a lot of decision making and kind of taking your voice to do like some transcription layer things, and talk to these other types of language models, and then do all this stuff in real time. It's like in less than a second, for all this processing all being done at the same time. And then I also learned today about an open source like voice turning model, so that it can understand when you're done speaking. Like that alone is just really, really hard to do. And, OpenAI has their thing with their chat stuff, and that's not open source. So if you wanted to build one on your own, now you can just get one off the shelf and then ship it into like a iOS app as well and have that type of thing going for you. That was massive. And that was a little bit earlier in this live stream. And this live stream is recorded, so you can watch this back on YouTube. On Twitch, it'll be up, I think, for 48 hours. On X, it'll still be there as well. YouTube is probably the easiest way, at Ray Fernando 1337, that you can go back and check out this. This will also be published live to LinkedIn because this is currently live streamed as well. Ray Fernando is my way to find it. And so definitely check that out. And we continued through talking a little bit about a course. So if you're interested in checking this out, definitely go check out the Maven course that we'll have linked in the descriptions, and go back. So you get 10K in the compute credits to use for your things. We also talked a little bit earlier about kind of geeking out on the LLM ecosystem and talking about, platforms and things that, are possible in the future. I didn't know a lot about these video agents and how far they have come along as well, which makes a lot of sense. If voices made this much progress, video is coming, live streams where people like me are talking to you, but it could be AI. This is like, we're early, folks. Go start playing. This playing field is here. Kwindla is one of the masters right now. I would say, like, as far as like not only developing this technology, making it open source, teaching people how to put this out there for you. And I'm really delighted to just have you on the show to bless your presence, to show us kind of what's been going on, a little bit about the code. And I definitely want to do another live stream where you come back on and share, and we kind of like code together and figure out, like, play with something and make something new with your framework. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You do such an amazing job with these streams. I'm just honored to get to be part of what you're doing.
Oh, this is fun. I think I should definitely do more of these. I think this is really cool, and I love everyone who shows up to the stream. Definitely tell some friends about this. If you want to see more about these types of things, I'd say definitely drop the comments, and then let me know if there's other technologies or things that you want me to check out that we should be checking out as a community together, because that's how I learn. And this type of hands-on thing is super helpful for me to learn. This pace in AI moves incredibly fast. And by the time, a book is published, and that could be a year from now, like, it's going to be like feeling like it's 7 years behind. Right? Just today, in my conversation with Kwindla, we got that sneak preview of where video is headed, right? Like, now you're up on it. All your friends are going to be talking about it later this year. You're like, oh yeah, I already built I've been playing around with voice. I kind of know which models to use now. I now deploy it this way. Your friends are going to start hitting you up for, architecture questions and like, what's the hottest thing or what you should be doing. So by the time video arrives, you're pretty much many steps ahead and deploying them. So I'm trying to get on that game, and you're trying to get on that game too. So cool. And a lot of people are saying my week is packed with PipeCat. Yep, like for sure. Like this is definitely a stack I have to be getting into. Laurent as well. 10 out of 10. Do more. Thank you so much. This is really, really interesting. Everyone, hey, I got a Notion notes filled up with tons of info. So currently building a directory. Yeah, man, there's a lot going on. I agree that the course for $400 is like steep, but I think this is kind of the early bird pricing that they have if you're in a different country. And I think the biggest payoff is literally getting the credits on the other side. So if this is something that you're actually going to be pursuing and you want to do a business worth, as a business expense, the payoff seems to be kind of like asymmetric or like something like it's just completely where you put this much in, you get like 10x more out, way more than 10x, because of the things that you learn. But on top of that, to be able to apply them in real time, which is my favorite thing to do. It's like, get this education, start digging in right away, start applying yourself, and then use those credits to kind of leverage that and, come up with a good business plan to do that. So,
if we have to charge for the course for a bunch of reasons, but we're not doing it for the money. If you are a student or if you're a startup founder in another country, DM me. I'll make it work for you.
Cool. On X at Kwindla, they get the little handle there below. Definitely some good stuff. May the 4th be with you. That's right. Today's the 4th. Alberto, thank you, man. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining on the stream. This was such a awesome stream. Kwindla, excited to have you back again. And for those who are trying to get on the course, make sure you sign up below. This is not sponsored, just totally out of the love of doing stuff for the tech community. I love just seeing this stuff out there, getting a peek of what's happening next in the future. Like, I don't know. I might just be like spending the entire weekend playing around with these types of things. And follow my X account at Fernando 1337. I'll probably be posting some bangers on there if I come up with some stuff. So I think also we could probably touch upon like other questions that people have. So definitely drop them below. Make a comment if you're watching this stream like over again on YouTube, so that we can kind of go over some of those topics in our next live stream. So where can people find you again? So if they're kind of looking for information of like how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm at Kwindla on X. My email is kwindla@daily.co, and I am in the PipeCat Discord, which you can join from the pipecat.ai, open source project homepage.
Excellent. All right, folks. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next live stream. Take it easy, y'all.
Thank you, Ray.
Bye.